Hey, everybody. We are live. This is the Mirror to Mirror Talk podcast show. What I want y'all to do is go ahead and hit the like and the share button. Listen, this broadcast, this episode is so very important. You could be helping save somebody's life. And I know you hear me say that quite often. However, today's episode is loaded with information that can very well help save somebody's life. So, what we want to do is for a quick moment, please go ahead and hit the share button. We are going to be welcoming our guest on in just a few minutes, but please, by all means, go ahead and hit that share button. I'm going to make sure that this is shared to my page. Please go ahead and hit that share button. Give us just a moment, please. All right. All right. Again, this is the Mirror to Mirror Talk podcast show where ministry meets reality and where mirror talk conversations become topics of discussion. I am your host, Phoenicia, and today we have with us Miss Marcelina Washington. This beautiful and amazing young lady, she works with the Texas Department of Public Safety with the Victims and the Employee Support Services, but I want to allow her to explain all of that to you. Right now, we're going to go ahead and welcome her on. Hello, sister.
Hello.
So, for those of you who don't know, like I know this amazing lady as a prophetess Marcelina, but in the workplace, I know that she is Marcelina Washington. First and foremost, I just want to ask you because this is such a sensitive topic, and because I know that we're going to go very deep on tonight. I want to ask you real quick, what is it that drew you to this field?
Sure. So I am a licensed professional counselor, licensed chemical dependency counselor here in the state of Texas. And that means that I'm licensed to not only provide services, but also to diagnose as your doctors do. So I'm a provider. And what drew me to this particular topic was I worked as a drug counselor in the Texas prison system. And I had a client that during a process group, which is where we just kind of get together and discuss various topics or discuss what's going on, kind of revealed that that person had been sex trafficked and that they had been sex trafficked two streets over for their home for multiple months, right?
From their
And
home.
from their home, they were only two streets over, but because they didn't recognize where they were, they thought that they were taken out because the person would just drive them around and take them different places. So they thought that they were further away than they thought, which is kind of what
My
happened.
God.
We'll talk about that a little bit more. But that experience and how this person was drugged for multiple months, being very close to their home, really started this whole journey for me. Next, I started volunteering or with organizations such as Elijah Rising and some of the other organizations that work with human trafficking, sex trafficking, and we'll get into that. But that is kind of what drew me into it. And now I work as part of my job with individuals who are affected by those various avenues as well, those various things.
My God, my
Mhm.
God. And you said that this baby was two streets over from her own residence, and the simple fact that it wasn't familiar to her, even
Mhm.
the two streets over. And so to me, that just says like we need to be aware of our environments. We need to know our whereabouts, even as it comes to the proximity of our own home.
Yes, because oftentimes, kids are picked up and dropped off closer to their homes. They know that street, they know that proximity, but 2 weeks, two streets over, like who actually goes up and down each street in their neighborhood? Nobody does that unless it's like whatever's going on. Most people don't do that in most communities. So she was very close, and she was drugged the whole time. And yeah, we'll talk about her story too, as you open things up. But yeah.
My God, my God, my God. Again, if you are just getting on, please hit that share button. I know I said it before, but this very episode could be helping to save somebody's life. So I want to ask you this. As you have begun to do this work in this field, what is the targeted age group that these predators target children?
Okay. Surprisingly, I just took a training on this. And like I said, I work with the state, but I also was working with other organizations, and we were going through training in which they were training peace officers to be able to identify things, to identify potential victims. And what I learned is that most victimization for those that are being sex trafficked start as early as 8 or 9, and can the average age is about 12.
My God, my
Mhm,
God. So very, very young.
mhm.
I know that we kind of use these words interchangeably, but what is the difference between human trafficking and sex trafficking?
Okay, so I'm going to read the definition. So human trafficking is one of the fastest growing and second largest crime enterprises in the world. It generates an estimate of $32 billion a year. Um, Human trafficking is defined as the recruitment, the harboring, the transporting, or um, procurement of a person for labor or services for a purpose of involuntary servitude, slavery, or forced commercial sex acts. Um, and so sex trafficking is it kind of has to do with sexual abuse by any person in return for something, whether it be cash or it be some sort of benefit for the person that is being trafficked. So this can be like commercially done, um, or a paid or third person that is paying for it. It includes child prostitution, child pornography, trafficking in children for sexual purposes, um, sex traffic tourism, or child marriage for a proposed for purposes of sexual abuse or sexual exploitation.
My God, so I didn't realize that sex trafficking could be something as simple as child prostitution or prostitution. I
Mhm.
thought that in order to be trafficked, you had to be basically transported somewhere, necessarily like by vehicle or something like that. I thought that you had to have been captured and then just maneuvered around. However, it can be something as simple as prostitution, is what you're saying.
Yes, in some cases, what I learned is we're looking for these predators to come outside of the home. Like these people are going to come in and take the kid or pick them up from school as they're walking home, these kind of different things. But in actuality, there's some people who prostitute or utilize their children for a trade or an exchange for money or services or drugs or different things that can happen from a parent or a caregiver, or someone of that sort, and into the general public.
My God, my God. So let me ask you this, because you talked about the simple fact that it can even be from a parent, it can be from a family member. And we're going to get more into that. But what is it that a sex trafficker even looks like? Because whenever we watch movies, we have certain things in mind. We see these vans. A lot of times we will assimilate even the ice cream vehicle, the ice cream truck, as a vehicle of trafficking. But what is it that sex traffickers even look like? Or even
I
a pimp, or even a pimp?
Okay. So let's talk about this. So I'm gonna break it down. So a sex trafficker can look like me or you. They can be male or female. They can be it's usually a person that is doesn't really know the child, but they may not know the child, but what they've done is they have coerced or they have groomed is the term that we use the child, meaning that I have psychologically broken you down where you feel like I am the best thing that has happened to you.
Mm,
You can't be loved any other way. That you have to do something in exchange. And usually what they do is, they'll groom them up front. That, like I said, it just means that they prepare them and give them things that they are necessarily missing or they feel like they're missing at home or missing. So pure love, attention, a lot of times parents feel like, oh, if I'm buying them all of this stuff, that is my way of being able to show love. But children actually need attention more than anything, even when they're pushing you away like teenagers. Be present for them, be aware of them, be in proximity of them so that they can be able to have those open discussions with you when something's going on.
right. And so a
Mhm.
lot of times, what the groomers will do is they will make you feel like they're the best option for you or there's no other option for you, is what you're saying.
Yes. So what they'll do is, I'll give you an example. So they'll take the person off the street, or they'll get them the come. So they'll solicit them through video games, online, these online chat rooms, these social media. They will be looking for them, and they'll present themselves maybe like they're somebody that's closer to the age. So if your child is, let's say you have a daughter that's 12, this person might present themselves as a 16-year-old boy, but in actuality they may be a 64-year-old man or 70, 80-year-old man, or even somebody in their 20s. It doesn't have to be someone that is
Some
older and was typical.
right.
Right. And so what they do is they will bring them in and they would pretty much just be like, here, baby, here's some money for your lunch. I gave you $50. So they give them a $50 bill. And most kids that
Gaining
are 12
trust.
have never seen $50, and I can go to school and now instead of using my lunch card, I can use this $50. Or he gets my hair and my nails done, and they're not going to ask for stuff just right up front. They're going to start building up. It's what they do is they build up a debt. So you're
Mhm.
always in a deficit. So he's like, well, I gave you
Mm.
that $500 to go buy them clothes. So you're going to have to do $500 worth. You're going to have to give me my money back with interest.
Oh god.
So
So
now
now
you,
they feel obligated. Oh my
yeah,
god.
they make them obligated. And then what they tell them is things like, I'm your boyfriend. I'm your girlfriend. 12-year-olds in the state of Texas cannot consent to sex. I need to say that again. 12-year-olds cannot consent to sex. So if your 12-year-old meets an 18-year-old or meets someone that is 21 or older, those ages are up, 18 and up or older, even 17, 16, children cannot consent to sex. They
Amen.
cannot. They don't have the psychological development to even engage in that, and I think that's important um, to state. According to the state of Texas, in order for an individual to actually consent to sex, you have to be 17 years old, right?
Gotcha.
But you have to be 18 years old to be able to vote and drive and all this other stuff, or, be able to do different. You got to be 21 to drink. You got to be all of these things, but you can consent to something of that
No,
sort.
that's
So,
backwards. That's crazy.
yes, yes. So very demonic.
Yeah.
Hmm.
My goodness. So, and I know we're going over a lot of terms right now. We're going to dive deeper, but before we do that, can you explain the difference between a pimp and, let's say, a pedo and a molester?
Sure. So I'm going to read the definitions. And the reason I'm reading the definitions is because it's important to understand it in the context in which it is written instead of what we think it is. So the term pedophile is actually a medical diagnosis, and nobody should be using the term unless you have your medical prescriber. You're somebody who can write a diagnosis, because it is a person who has a sexual disorder, who has reoccurring or intense sexual arousal fantasies, sexual urges, or behaviors involving prepubescent children, as they desire sex partners, generally the ages of 13 and younger.
And,
Okay.
and, and I want to flag right there
Okay.
because and I know that by definition is stated as a medical diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say it is a demonic diagnosis. It is
Mm-hmm.
it is demonically inflicted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know that they say that, it shouldn't be used, but this is what it is. And I know that we are in an age where it is said that we are to be careful with our words. We may even get flagged on here because we're saying these words.
Mm-hmm.
But we're living in an age where terms like that are said to be offensive when this is what it is. However, you can't even say the name of Jesus Christ, you know what I'm saying, and not cause offense. And so I
Yeah.
mean I'm just throwing that out there. Like it's wild to me that we can't call a thing what it is. But I digress. But I just wanted to say that. Go ahead. You can go
Yeah,
ahead.
so that's why I'm making sure that I'm reading the terms versus just giving
Mhm.
you my definition of it. So, a child molester is identified as a significantly older person who engages in any types of sexual activities with a legally defined child. Okay.
Okay.
And pimp, in other words, can be called like a John or different things of that sort. That is actually the person who uses their power to be able to, uh, how shall I say, sell the child for services.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Proposition for
And,
services.
okay. And again, we're still on terms right now. What is the difference between trafficking and smuggling?
Okay, the difference between, give me a second, trafficking and smuggling is trafficking is a crime against a person, contains a element of coercion, subsequent exploitation, can occur domestically, trafficked
When you
individuals.
say domestically, can you detail that for the,
Yeah, this means that they can be sent different places. So from Texas to Arizona, they can be sent domestically, right? Or they can be sent overseas. No,
Mhm.
they can be sent domestically is what I'm saying, within the United States or within the
Gotcha.
country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Traffic individuals should be seen as victims. So they are considered as a victim. Smuggling is crimes against a nation's sovereignty. It There is no coercion or where contact ends. Fees usually paid in advance. Is always international in nature. Illegal entry is usually seen as violators. So the difference, like you're saying, is a trafficking. Somebody that's trafficked is usually within the confounds of the United States.
Mhm.
For example, someone who is smuggled is usually brought from one country to another. There
Gotcha.
is no contact in that manner. They're usually brought in in most cases, for the use of being able to make a transaction as far as providing services versus
Okay.
sexual services. Does that make sense?
Mhm. It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
Okay.
Um, what is the main place that children are targeted? Like
Uh,
where do these predators look to find their children, to find the children?
okay. So let's talk about that. But before we get to that, do you mind if I give some statistical data?
Please do.
Is it okay? Okay. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about, because we've been talking a lot about sex trafficking and things of that sort. So let's talk about the number of registered sex offenders in the United States of America. There is almost a million registered sex offenders. There are 9,117,771 registered sex offenders in the United States alone. Those are the ones that are registered, right? Meaning that the country or the state should have their picture and all their fingerprints, them, and doesn't matter if they grew a beard. Every time they change something with their face or gain weight and things, they're supposed to go and take pictures. Of the number that I gave you, which is almost a million, there's an estimated of 53,000 of those that are non-compliant, meaning that they don't know where these people are at.
Mm, mm,
And they have, or they haven't turned themselves in to register or put in information. And there are places you can go, by your neighborhood and find that information out. The other thing I needed to let you know is there is an estimated of a 4,666 949 missing children that are reported. I think it is very important to understand that 1 in every 4 girls will be has been, let me phrase this right, has been sexually victimized before adulthood, and
mm.
1 in 6 boys have
Jesus.
been victimized before adulthood.
Jesus.
That
Jesus.
means if you had a 2 lines of 10 girls I'm sorry, a line of 10 girls and a line of 10 boys, that 2 of those girls, according to stats, would have been molested, and one of the boys would have been molested within that time period or sexually assaulted in some
Before
parts
adulthood.
prior to the adulthood. Yes.
Mm, 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 mm.
Okay.
My God. Ooh,
Yes, ma'am.
this is deep. Um, and you said something a few moments ago. You talked about being a victim. What is it? Because we had a conversation before this, and I just want to know, what is it that outlines a person as a victim of such crimes?
Hmm. So what it looks like for children, is that what you're asking me? Is what does it look like on the victim?
No, I'll say qualifies a person as a victim.
Oh, give me a second. Oh, a victim is there's actually no shows no signs outwardly, right?
Hmm.
Signs of victimization may vary. Sometimes it can be laughter or smiling or joking, because everybody deals with stress and the stress response differently. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? And
Yeah.
so it may not always look the same, but when in defining what a victim actually is.
And the reason I ask you is because
Hmm.
sometimes there may be a person who may be a victim or may have been a victim and may not have
Hmm.
even known that they were a victim.
Hmm. Yeah, give me a second. I'm rolling with these definitions. I want to stay as close to them as possible because they were written by experts who did a lot of research. So I want to make sure. Um,
Absolutely.
uh, let's see.
And while you're finding it, I'm gonna
Mhm,
say this because um mm, there was a time when I was younger,
mhm,
and I was involved in a situation where there was an older cousin who had me performing things on them. And they had been abused. And because they had been abused, then they translated those actions into even younger people who they were around. And so the victimization continued. However, um, especially when you're young, you don't really think anything of it. You think, hey, we playing a game. We playing, it may even
Try to
be
go get it. Let's talk
I was
about
just
it.
gonna say that it may even be hide and go get it or something like that.
Hmm.
However, there is victimization that occurs.
Yes. So the dictionary defines it as someone or something that has been hurt, damaged, killed, or has suffered either because of the actions of someone or something else, or because of an illness of chance. So it could be, it's something that has been created a traumatic experience for the person. And some people may say, well, I consented to it. And when I was 12, I told them that I could have sex with them. That I didn't fight them off because, I felt like that was my boyfriend. They told me I was their girlfriend. You cannot consent. I will repeat that again. You cannot consent to sex, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so just understanding that it's an incident in which a person is violated. They're hurt, they're damaged, they're killed. They are also put in a position where they are not protected. That
Yeah.
is a victim. Hmm.
God. Can you tell us, you and myself, we talked about a few instances. Can you tell us about the incident that happened when the girl was taken to College Station?
Okay,
Wow.
so one of the things that we watched was about a young lady who lived in a very small town. I can't say where, but she lived in a small town. She met somebody on social media. This person drove from College Station, picked that person up, took that person back to College Station. This person was around 15, 16 years old. They were sexually assaulted. And 15 or 16 years old, they were sexually assaulted and they were pregnant at the time.
Mm.
So they were sexually assaulted on the way there. The person that sexually assaulted them was 22 years old. Um, they just so happened to be stopped by a peace officer
Mm.
who was questioning, just so happened in the middle of the night, had pulled them over in a routine traffic stop, right? And this child had been taken to like I said, College Station, and their stories never lined up, but there is some accusations or some clues that are pointing to she was sexually assaulted by multiple persons there, and
Mm.
then was on the way to go to Tomball, go to a different place. It's a different place in the state of Texas, and then driven back home. But this was this person's expectation. The mindset of this 14-year-old who jumped in a car with someone that had just met online, felt safe enough to get in the car, allow this, be open to this person, because I want to make sure that we understand this person is a victim. Um, be exposed to this place and really saw it as, when the police officer stopped them, really felt offended by what was going on, when in actuality there was so much crime that was happening in that time period.
Mhm.
And that the story from the young man was, he was planning on taking the person a to their girlfriend. It was picking them up in the girlfriend's vehicle and taking them to the girlfriend's house so that they can be, because they were swingers, which means that they have multiple partners. And they were bringing this child that was pregnant
My
in. I want you to understand. So it's a minor with a baby. This person's pregnant, right? And bringing them into this place. But again, had just met this person and was very free in the space. So he picked her up and sexually assaulted her and lied so many different times. And so that was the thing that was just really disturbing. The minor had been through the system enough, meaning that they had been through CPS custody and various things, and was really adamant about not having any um, adult supervision. And there's no such thing. Like, you are the award to the state. If you have, there are ways for minors to be able to be kind of on their own, but you would have the paperwork on you. And this person did not have that. And the guardian was called out to the scene to get them. But usually in these cases, and in most cases, CPS is called. So Child Protective Services have to be called in those situations, because we have a duty to report. So
Mm.
just how quick that person got them, met them on social media because of how they dressed, inboxed this person, and this person jumps in a car with them and is gone.
My God, my God, my God. There was You said a whole lot there. You said that
Mhm.
she was offended by how the situation was going. What do you mean by that?
Was offended mostly because they were being asked, pulled over, very, when individuals know that they have something to try to hide, they didn't have enough
Mhm.
time to collaborate the story. And
Right.
so, as they were being questioned by the peace officer, they, came up with various things that, various, different stories that
Scenarios.
didn't match
Right.
up. The stories didn't match. And if you would have seen the amount of land or amount of wooded area just
Mm.
in on the camera from the protective services, if he had at any time stopped that car, pulled over, killed her, put her in the woods, they would have taken it would have been years before they found this baby.
Jesus.
But they
Jesus.
just go and they groom them, and it just took one day. Like they had, according to them, they had just met.
Mm.
Mhm.
God, my God. Is there a and I read certain things, but is there a grooming process? I know you spoke earlier about grooming, but is there a
Mhm.
grooming process?
Yes. So, let me get to that part. So the grooming process I think is important to talk about. Again, like I told you, like of the victim, and what they do is they break things down. The grooming process involves Haslow's hierarchy of need,
Mhm.
which is at the very bottom is the basic needs. What do you need to survive in life? Well,
Mhm.
food, clothes, shelter. Those are basic needs. The next one up is love.
Mhm.
uh in what you're needing, like it's food, clothes, shelter, and then love. And
Mhm.
so being able to look at that and really understand it. So what they Yes,
Good.
and so what they do is a person who is a pimp or someone that is a predator, what they do is they start meeting the basic needs. They study the child, they or the individual, because we're talking about human trafficking as well. They study the individual, and it's not hard because most people who have been through any traumatic event or don't feel heard, and all of a sudden someone is listening
Oh,
and paying attention and hanging on every word, they just do those things. They do what they need and they get them where they need them to be. So there is stages to grooming. So the first thing they do is they target the victim. They usually watch them from afar, or the thing is that it's important to know that they have children that are recruiting for them, that they send to school to
that
recruit so
part.
that they can get. Uh-huh. So as you're looking at your children's friends,
Oh God.
be aware if they have, we'll talk about the markings and things of that sort to look for. But the first thing that they do is they target the victim. The second thing is they build a bond. So they're gonna show up, they're gonna be there, they're gonna bust them down with some flowers. They're gonna give them all kinds of things that they didn't have. They're gonna be all the things that they could want, need, and they're gonna be that for them, right? But it's a false sense of
Mm,
hope is what they're
right.
giving, right?
Oh God.
The next thing is they're going to fulfill the unmet needs. Oh, I see your clothes is dirty, and they keep teasing you about your clothes. Let me take you shopping, like I was telling you early, and then spend $500, and then tell the child you owe me $500. You owe me $1,000,
Mm,
but you're
mm.
gonna have to work it off. You ain't got a job, it's okay. You're gonna have to work it off. I'm gonna kill your family, or you're gonna
God
have to
have
work it
mercy.
off. I'm gonna tell everybody what you did.
Oh
And so
God.
they start teaching them. So then they start isolating the child, right? So be aware of when your kids are spending an excessive amount of time alone. Check on them. If they play video games, play the video games with them every once in a while. Like get in there and be like, hey, teach me, how to do this. But what you're doing is you need to be examining and observing what's going on. Who's talking to your
So
child?
good.
I have a son that plays a video game. I'm like, who are you talking to? What
Right.
information do they have? Because it doesn't take them long to figure out where your child is. A lot of them will take pictures with their school uniforms on. You got you
Right.
don't
And it
realize.
has the information right there.
Something I got to do is just show up to,
The
Drew
school.
Barrymore's middle school. And I know that your daughter played volleyball because you keep posting pictures of it. And so now I can do is just sit there and watch.
Jesus.
right? And so then the next thing that they do is after they isolate, the abuse begins, because now I have broken down any place that you have that you feel like is comfortable, right? And so that's important. And the last thing that they do is they maintain the control.
Oh my God. My God, my God.
And
So let me ask you
go
this.
ahead.
I don't know if this has been a part of your trainings or anything, but
Hmm.
discussed is it discussed as far as posting pictures and stuff online, as far as parents posting pictures online? Like is that something that we should do? Is that something that we shouldn't do? Is that something that y'all talked about?
Yes. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Because I often see, and I've done it myself before I took this training, but which is if they have a missing kids report, or if there's a missing kids thing, oftentimes what predators will do, because they have access to friend connections, right? So they're seeing these posts. And if you say my child is missing in I'm just throwing something out, Lawrenceville, Louisiana. I don't even know if there is a Lawrenceville, Louisiana, but it's using that example. And I know as a person that's a predator that I live in Lawrenceville, and I just need you to show me who to look for. And especially if that person or that child has been missing for a while. So they use the missing persons reports to actually recruit and groom and cultivate these kids, because they know that they're out there, they're running away from something.
So you're talking about like those pictures that we post on social media whenever we see, hey, this person is missing, they've been missing this amount of days, they went missing from the last place seen was here. Whenever we repost that information, we're actually giving predators information that they use for their benefit.
Yes. Yes,
My
ma'am.
and
You're
we
actually doing the
and the
footwork
thing
for them.
is, ma'am,
Hmm. I say we're actually doing the footwork for them. They don't even have to go. And look, we told them when the last time, what they clothes they got on. And they'll be like, if Johnny's still wearing that thing, that same red shirt and blue pants that you posted 2 weeks ago, I know that Johnny needs some new clothes. Johnny needs to be loved on. Johnny needs a bath. Like, I know all these different things because you pretty much then told me what Johnny needs. And so my job, remember, is to just fulfill the need and to make Johnny feel as safe as I can't even imagine. My parents were blah 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 as well, Johnny. So I can understand what you're going through. You know.
mm, so what would be the right way to do that when we see these missing persons reports? Like, what are we to do as far as is helping that person be found?
So let me also say this too. I just thought about this part that I that hadn't even thought about. So let's say the kid gets rescued and they go home, right? Let's say that this particular child, this runaway, goes back home. Most runaways run away again, especially adolescents. But what I have done is now I have provided a system, because that Amber Alert and all these other things are going to go out again. Is what we need to do is send a message back to the main person who posted it to find out if that person is missing, or even Google it to see if that person is actually missing, and share it in a small group. Like I wouldn't share it on big social media, but share it in a small group, but check first to see if that person is, because let's say that the child went back home, predators will use that to lure the child back out the house, because they know that if they ran away once, they're easier to they're going to be easy prey, because we know we can get them to do it again, because family structure is going to be the same. Like, it doesn't change that much because somebody ran away from home, unless there's like other efforts, counseling, church, community that steps in and helps the family with whatever the issues are.
Right, right, right. Okay, so back to the question about the social media postings.
Hmm.
Is it is it a good idea for parents, for family members to post pictures of their loved ones, to post pictures of their children? Um, I know that this has been a topic that has been up for debate. I don't know if this is something that they covered in y'all's training, but is that a good idea?
I won't give it a good or bad idea. I'm going to give it a thought idea, if that's okay with you. So, what I
Absolutely.
would like to present is, if I am truly protecting my child, posting every time my child is at a track meet, that they're meeting at this particular place. I'm giving location and airing opportunity, because I am not with my child all the time. There are
Right.
times when they are with their team. If y'all can know this, they're with their team, or we think that they're with their team, but they're walking with a few of their buddies, and then they kind of get out by themselves because their buddies find some other friends, and they're by themselves trying to make it back to whatever. If this person has been watching them, or a predator, because they're gonna do it, they're gonna be like Satan, because that's what it's designed to do,
He
is they're
studies.
going to
He studies. Uh-huh.
study and watch. They don't have nothing but time and opportunity, air and opportunity, and they're going to see the weaknesses. That's what their job is, to study where there is a break in the chain, or a weak place in the chain, where they can take these children out of their homes and safe environments. They
My
study.
God.
So what I would say to you is, be post little Johnny, but if little Johnny has the team school and things of that sort, keep it in mind that I am opening up for
Oh
other
God.
people to have access to my child. I think it's important to also understand the reason I'm able to speak on this particular topic as well is because I actually worked as a provider for individuals who were identify as sex offenders, right? Or civil committed. And civil committed, and these are two different types, right? So civil committed individuals will never, ever, ever get out of jail because of the heinous crimes, sexual crimes, that they have done and committed in life. SOs, or sex offenders, individuals with sex offender, or have to register as a sex offender. Remember, almost a million in the United States, not the
Mhm.
world, the
Mhm.
United States.
And
They
and all of them aren't even registered.
Yes, and a good amount is not registered. I mean, it's less than 10%, but still 50,000 is a lot, right? And so sex offenders, as I was saying before, it's just a violation. They've done the violation, the crime. They served their time, but they still have to be registered. Some of them can um go in school zone. Some cannot. It depends on what the crime was and how it is written and how their probation or parole releases them. I think that's important to understand too. Um, and as and especially as people are dating, especially as people are bringing moving into new communities, like, know what is going on in these places and spaces, so that you can be better prepared for your child. I'm not telling you to be afraid, but I am trying to equip you so that you can be aware. We have the
Absolutely.
saying, which is, aware to be aware is to be alive.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I know we talked, and we're going to get into the story of this young lady, but one of the things that you brought up to me, which I've actually seen people that will go to a park, don't have any children, but they will go and park at a park and they will just watch. That was something that I think you had mentioned during one of our conversations.
Yes. So they will watch from their car. They'll do it. They'll watch it from a park bench. This one individual that we learned about actually had, this was like one that really just did it. So I'm gonna try to say it without crying, because I'm a mom as well. I think it's important, and I'm a grandmother. But it floored me that this person was a registered SO. Their probation or parole officer had not visited their home, had not done a pop-up, figure out where the home was at, because had they done it, the house itself was in the park, not across the street from the park, not next door, because the next door was like, this person could throw from their living room, throw a rock and hit the slide, like that close to the actual place where the kids were playing. And they had a chair facing the window when the investigators
God have mercy.
researched it, with the window open, like the blind window open, facing where the slide was. And that person desired children, like babies, wrote poems around it, all kinds of different things, about what it was like to be with a child. And I'm not talking like 12. Remember, we talked about the time. I'm talking 3, 5, 8.
My God. My God, Jesus. Mm,
So
mm, mm, mm.
so another thing I want to bring up too is when are children more susceptible for kidnapping or for being lured to be sex trafficking? It is during times when you see, and I'm not saying anything about anything. That's my disclaimer. What I'm giving you is information. When there are big sporting events, when there are various governmental party events going on, when there are big, like anything that comes to the city or comes to your town, like the Super Bowl, for example. I'm just using this as an example. Was just
Yeah,
in New Orleans because of money. I think the sickest thing to keep in mind is the younger the child, the more money they pay for. Again, the
Jesus.
younger the child, the more money they pay for them. So I want to leave you guys with make sure that you have that information. So if there's a something coming to the town, you'll see an increase in the amount of child abductions, or you'll see kidnappings, you'll see missing kids, you'll see different things like that. And I'm not saying that, but they're drawn to things like that. They're drawn to those big events, big concerts
Well,
that are
because
coming.
there is an abundance of children. There's a
Mhm.
large amount of children, so their access is greater.
Mhm. Yeah,
My
and they're more susceptible, because kids
right,
will, we have to teach them, don't go with somebody because you don't get they gave you candy, or
right.
don't get in a car with somebody just because they'll learn your kid's name. They'll stand. Think about this. How often are you screaming your kid's name?
Exactly.
Right. And so
Exactly.
they'll go to their school the next day and they be like, "Are you Mark? Your mama, she's got the short hair and she wears it in a she told me to come and get you and take you home because something happened at home. And I need to make sure that you get that safe. My name is such and such."
Very conniving,
Yeah.
strategic.
Mhm.
Ooh, my God, my God, my God, my God. And as you were talking, like I was thinking, like whenever we go to different functions, a lot of times, and I'm not saying, like you said, this is not something to create fear, but it is just something to create awareness about. But a lot of times, it's like even with our younger children, say that it's a football game or whatever, we will sometimes, and I'm gonna say we'll allow our children to maybe go to the restroom by themselves or anything like that, and we don't know who's there. We don't know who has what plan up their sleeve, and sometimes, and I'll say this, I feel like um, it's easy to be careless. So I'm just putting out there, if you have been one who has been careless, listen, let us step up our awareness and let us step up our level of stewardship over our children.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
There was a story that
Okay.
you had. Go ahead.
So I wanted to also give before you, because I wanted to finish the list because I just found it. So the other places where children are often exploited is motels, um modeling studios, keep that in mind, guys, truck stops,
Mm. Mm.
clubs, escort services, apartment complexes, in the internet. They can also, remember we are talking about the major events, the conventions, the sporting events. Fairs is another one, or any popular large event. So whenever you see these big concerts come to town, for example, I'm not saying anybody in particular, but that is what draws these people in to start looking for kids. There becomes an increase in those areas. But yes, I wanted to talk about this particular story. Um, so there is a young lady, you can look this up. Her name was Shasta Groening, right? And she lived in a small town up north, and she lived with her mother, her stepfather, and her two older brothers. Um, and there was a gentleman, his name was, well, I can't say gentleman, the predator's name was Joseph Edward Duncan III, and he was a serial killer, a rapist, and a murderer. And he had been observing her household for quite some time. So one day she was describing, I was watching this on YouTube right before everything kind of started, before tonight. I wanted to see her event, see her. So in 2022, she did a interview, and she was talking about the series of events that um, led up to it. So led up to a life changing event for her. So at the time, what I'm talking about, this young lady was 8 years old. Keep that in mind. Again, she lived with her mother, her stepfather, and her two older brothers. This gentleman was watching them across the street and eventually approached the house and came into the house. He was in full brigade, from what I understand, and he had a hammer. And I think the stepfather
He was
threatened
in
to
full
kill.
what?
He was in full, like he had on body armor. He had on stuff that the police will be
Like
wearing.
military. I gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, so he had on like a vest and things of that sort, from what I understood. Okay. And so he enters into the house and he overtakes mom and dad, ties them up and the older brother, and he kills them. He kills them with a hammer. And this girl and her brother are listening to their family be murdered in the next room. Well,
God.
the kills the mother, kills the stepfather, and then the older brother, he hits him, but he gets away and he's outside bleeding, but he takes the two younger children. So remember, the young lady's 8 years old and her brother. So Shasta and Dylan Groney. And so he takes them across the state lines to it's like St. Regis State Park. So he takes them to a state park into this because a lot of times they'll have like old closed off like cabins and things of that sort for whatever the reason may be. And he had them there and he had the children perform sexual acts on him. And this was a part that really made me sick, was because the 8 year old girl did better than the this was quoted,
Boy.
did better than the boy. He killed him. And the reason she was able to do better than that, because she was being sexually assaulted by her brother. And so she had already been doing that. Now, mind you, she's 8 at the time that all this is happening. And at the time she does the interview, she's 18. So it's 10 years later. So he kills, like I said, he kills those family members and he kills the brother. He takes him outside and he shoots him, and it shoots him twice. So she hears this. But before all of that happened, before she kills the younger brother, she is asking him about his family and telling him he wants to meet them, and because he's so mean to them. And as she's talking to him at 8, she is able to calculate that if she's nice to him, maybe he'll be nice to her. And he became nicer to her. So he takes her, and after he's killed everybody in her family, he
God have
takes
mercy.
her to a Denny's, and I'm not sure how many times he's done this, but of course they have a missing persons out for the family because the neighbors find blood all over the house. So this is what draws everybody and why the police got involved. Because I mean, if they didn't have any family members, who would come and look for them, right?
Mhm.
And so, anyways, they go to this Denny's, and these two ladies ask the question, and the question they ask her is, "Are you okay? And do you need help? And where's your mommy?" And that's when she broke and she's told them. But there are videotapes or videos and pictures of this young lady. The man is pumping gas, and she's like, she can kind of take off running if she wanted to, but he had groomed her so much that she wasn't going to go anywhere. And grooming is just like a psychological term that they break them down, and break, if I can break, the person can break down the hope of any survival in that person, they have them. And that's how they ultimately do these different things to them and get them to stay in different places. They break down the psyche, they break down your emotional state. They make you feel like it's them or nothing, or you're going to die if this is your only means of surviving.
Mm, 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 mm. God.
Yes. So, anyways, long story short, these women noticed her, remembered her from the postings of missing peoples, the stuff that you're talking. So, like I said, it
Mm,
can work both good and bad, but I needed you to understand why it's important to it. I wouldn't say don't do it. I would just say, just be aware, you know. And they
right.
spotted her, and that's why they asked her questions. And she said, had somebody asked her that question before, because she had been to many places. Um, had they asked her that before, she would have been probably free beforehand.
Mm, My
Yeah.
God, Jesus.
Yes.
And you said that
So
this is a story that people can actually find on YouTube.
YouTube, yes. Her name is the young lady's name is Shasta, and there's so many different individuals. We also talked about, Elizabeth Smart was one where she was kidnapped and the FBI was looking for her, and they were actually the FBI agent actually walked up to her. They just talked about this weekend too in one of my trainings, and she had a covering over her face that this guy was having her wear, and she was raped both by the husband and the wife. Okay, by both the husband and the wife in the desert for many months. And with a Christian comes from a two-parent home, like there's no dynamic of what they're doing. They're bold enough to be able to go in there. They're like, oh, you got a man in the house. That doesn't matter to them when they have a target that they're wanting to do. Um, but they kept her in the desert for many years. The FBI agent walked up on her, but because her face was hid, he walked up to her and he said, "Are you Elizabeth Smart?" And the man spoke up. She never answered and said, "No, she's not. And it's against our religion for her to speak to a man." And he left
My
her
God.
alone. Left her
Oh
alone.
my God.
Yes. Yes. And she said in the testifying case, had he had me remove the covering from my face, they would
Oh
have
my
found me somewhere.
God.
Yes. So it's things like that that we have to come together, both as law enforcement and as the community, to be able to do what is best to kind of help our kids. If you see stuff, the majority of children are sex trafficked or people are trafficked in vehicles. That is the number one thing. How often are we at a gas stop and we see a kid that and be aware if the kid looks like the person that's in the car. Nobody usually question them. We try to mind our own business, but we don't know um, whose life we could save in instances like that.
Right, right. And you said something. You said had the officer told her to remove that, he just took the adult's word. But he's a police officer. He has the authority, right,
hmm
to override what that man is saying, correct?
I get what you're saying, but he has authority, but he had no power because her religious belief overrode his ability to be able to do that. But had he forced it and went across his what he felt is uncomfortable, she would have been saved a lot sooner.
My God, Jesus. You talked to me earlier. This brings back a conversation that we had earlier about even teaching our children the correct terminology. I know that we talk kitty talk because we don't
Mhm.
want our children to say things out loud sometimes, but what is the importance of teaching them the correct terminology of even your body parts?
Yes. So, guys, you have to remember, most of these people get off. Well, the reason why you see the number so high is because most of them get off. They're repeat offenders, right? And
When you
if
say
they
they
get
get
off,
off, what do you mean?
they don't get the sentences that they deserve for what they've done. Give me a second. They don't get the sentences that they deserve for what they've done, and it's not because they have to be able to be within the parameters of the law. And please know that the law is written in such a way that it is very precise. So sometimes, and that's kind of what the training was as well for the officers, um was that I was with, was that they needed to know that just because something doesn't is not legal um or
Verbiage.
not illegal in Texas, doesn't mean it's not a legal issue federally. So that's what they had to learn. So be able to know the difference. So they went through various penal codes and things of that sort. And so it is important to tell your kids and teach your kids the proper terminology for their body parts, because when the district attorney or whoever has to try the case on their behalf, they have to have the terminology, because if not, the judge will say, well, I don't know. You're giving the kids, you're kind of leading them by saying that that's what he calls his binky, or when he calls his wawa, or she calls her wawa. Give them the terminology so they can say, he touched my vagina, or he touched my, anus. He touched me on
And
my
I think we
thigh.
have to be careful. I'm not sure what words will get us flagged, but
Yes, I'm sorry, but
okay,
you have to give them the terminology. You have to tell them what it is. Please teach your kids as early as you can. Call it what it is,
that's
because
good.
it helps to stick the convictions when the attorneys are trying to um, execute a case, because they will get thrown out and they be like, I mean, you interpret that as that's what that is. It's the interpretation of the law. And if they don't use the right terminology, they can't do the actual conviction. And most of the time, children are not invited into court cases, so they can't touch or whatever the situation may be, because they're not going to re-victimize the child.
My God. And so, in other words, to me that is almost, that is like a failure. You know what I'm saying, on the system, because these children are saying this, and I get it. I know there are certain protocols and everything, but basically what you're saying is we have to teach them the correct terminology of their body parts, because if something was to ever happen and there was a case that was developed, then they need to be able to correctly articulate what was done to them and what body part was affected.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. So, that brought up something else that I was thinking, because I wanted to say this before we go. I wanted to kind of draw some attention to the modes of abduction. So if we can talk about that just briefly, with the modes of abduction, like how are kids typically abducted? So
Mhm.
as I said before, 49.7% is driving, 21.1% is walking. Driven by another is only 9.7, is still a number.
So
No
you said
transportation.
like the not the person walking by themselves, the person that is abducting them, they're walking with them, and you may never know that there's an abduction taking place.
Exactly. Okay. Um, Driving by another person, like I said, is 9.7. No transportation involved at all is 9.4. And on a bicycle, 2.19.
Wow. My
Mm-hmm.
God. My God, my God. What is the probability of the perpetrator being a family member, or a trusted individual to the family?
Yes, I am so glad you asked that. Because that's where I was going to. So most of them are most sex crimes, sexual assault on a child crimes um, occur when or putting a child in high risk. Let me say that. Let me use that terminology. Comes from acquaintances or family members. Those are the highest, number one. I think another one is to think about is unfortunately places of worship like churches or synagogues or other places like that, because the families like, go to the bathroom, little Johnny. I'm trying to hear church, or whatever the situation may be. I think that's important to understand. Those are places that people lurk, and they're not going to be people that you think from the outside. Sometimes they could be people that actually belong there. Within the school systems, like there's so many different things, and we can't protect them from life, but we can teach them and prepare them for life.
Right.
But there's many different things, different places that they could be present. But those are the key people, and the probability is somebody that they know.
My
And
God.
it could be a family friend, a neighbor. In this instance, with the young lady I was telling you about, the 8-year old, this guy was a neighbor. He was an actual neighbor, you know.
Mm, 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 mm.
Mhm.
Y'all, we are getting ready to wrap this up, but we do have a few more things, y'all. This is so informational, and I just want to tell you, Marcelina, thank you so much for coming on and just providing this information. Again, those of you who did tune in, I hope that you shared this because you could very well be helping to save a child or an individual's lives. Remember, trafficking, even though we are talking predominantly about children, trafficking does not just is not just limited. I think we lost her. She'll be back. But trafficking is not just limited to children. However, trafficking can happen to anybody at any age. And so this information is very much important. When she returns, one of the things that we are going to talk about is markings and tattoos. So hopefully I don't forget that. Please make sure, yeah, I see y'all in the comments. I see y'all in the comments. So make sure that y'all help me remember that. I was just telling them, it can happen to anybody at any age. Before we get to the rest of our questions, we just have a few. I wanted to ask you, what is it? I was speaking to another individual who actually deals with human trafficking and sex trafficking. And one of the things, I don't know if you guys were informed on this or if this is something that you guys talked about, but what are some of the things or characteristics or traits that predators look for when they're looking at the females and when they're looking at the males? Because a lot of times we think that females are the only ones who are trafficked. However, there are also males that are trafficked. And if you
Um,
don't have that information, that's okay. We will get that to you guys if she doesn't.
I think it's important to understand. This is the possible risk factors, is what you're asking me. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yes.
So risk factors look like, I'll give you quite a few. I actually just look at it. Look at God. Is prior abuse and neglect, multiple or casual caregivers. So going from home to home, having multiple people that are taking care of this child. Um Early sexualization of any kind, mental illness, develop disabilities or developmental delays, juvenile delinquents history. Other things is they stop going to school or sudden changes in appearance. Um, and these are things just to be aware of, that they
Right.
start doing. They also have access to unexplainable money. The child seems to have a set script. Like if you ask them a question, they're going to have a answer for everything
Formulated.
that you're saying, but it's
Hmm.
calculated because
Hmm.
you have to remember, a child's brain, the frontal lobe part of their brain that allows them to problem solve, is not fully developed in females until the around the age of 4 on average. I'm sorry, 4. Around the ages of 24 on average for a female and 26 for a male. So they don't even have the frontal lobe development to be able to problem solve the way that we do and to calculate those things the way that we do. But be aware,
Right.
if your daughter has a boyfriend and she's 13, 14, 15, 16, and the boyfriend is 42, like, ask questions, like
Yeah,
really ask
absolutely.
questions, get involved, press charges in places that you need to, because it is not okay. Children cannot consent to sex. They cannot.
Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Um, we talked earlier about markings and brandings and tattoos and whatnot. Can you hit on that real quick, please?
I would really like to. It's better to show you the markings, because they look so innocent. A lot of times they use a lot of anime or things like that that's going to draw the attention. So it's going to be something like Winnie the Pooh or Blues or some of the other things that your kids may like. I'm looking at coercions they use is like the Mario Brothers stuff. You know, they may have books or DVDs or tablets in their back in their trunks or their back seats, but they don't have any kids. Like there's no
Mhm.
signs of kids and things of that sort, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
And so that's even with the tattoos, they'll have animated tattoos
Yeah,
and
they have
whatnot,
animated
or
tattoos and
brands.
stuff like that. Yeah, things are brands or things of that sort. They'll have I want to be able to show them to you. So I'm going to bring them up if we can do a follow-up on this and
Absolutely.
kind of build with some other stuff, but and get some more things because this is Crime Victims Month is coming up too. But I want to be able to show what the tattoos look like. Um
Absolutely.
on the predators, but I also want to show what branding looks like on kids because they brand the kids just like they did back in the day with cattle, or they do, with cattle or
With
anything
slaves,
else. Hmm,
with
with
slave
slaves
and
to mark
slavery.
them. Yeah.
Mhm.
So a lot of times they'll have, and again, please forgive me because I'm flipping through my manual to make sure I'm giving you guys as much information as I possibly can. But they will have like little innocent hearts, and you're like, oh, that's cute. And the person who is the attacker, or the person
Perpetrator.
that is the
Mhm.
predator, yes, may have markings on them, and then the kids will have similar markings on them. So it may be a marking that says, whatever exclamation, explicit word, um property. You know what I mean? Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So they'll
Mhm.
have something where it's similar. So when you see them, the pimp knows that that child belongs to somebody else and who
Got
it
you.
belongs to.
Got you.
Right?
Got you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm, mm, mm. You talked about, as we're talking about like markings and animations and whatnot. And I don't know if we can even go into this because I don't know what all this entails. But you did talk about the term erotica.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So erotica is kind of like an animated version. Again flipping. I wish I could show y'all these these different things on my camera. Let me see. I think I can. Where to be, but we'll get it the next time.
Yeah,
But I want to be able
we'll
to show
definitely touch
y'all.
it.
Yeah, I want to be able to show you guys that. But just understanding the erotica, which is a form that they use to a form of kind of like a perverted cartoons. There's even some guys. I want y'all to be aware on things like Netflix. There is erotica on Netflix that
Hmm.
is open to your kids, and only thing they have to do is have access to it. Be aware of what they're watching. That and I'm gonna go to cartoons as well. I'm gonna group those two together because it's animated, right? But
Hmm.
they're actually having intercourse. I hope I can say
On
that,
the
but that's what
cartoon.
they're having. Yeah, the cartoons. And so they'll show them stuff like that. There'll also be stuff like I saw Elmo, like videos where it'll start off very innocent, but if you watch it long enough, they are doing things that are very inappropriate um and should not be shown to children or shouldn't be recorded or anything because they have taken something that we will leave our kids in the room with and show them stuff, and now your child is exposed to pornography, a form of pornography.
And this is the way that they get the children more comfortable with the act.
Yeah, because it's kind of like desensitizing. It's like a kid who grew up in a neighborhood where shootings were something, you know, um that they're familiar with.
Right.
They become very desensitized to it, and what would make us jump or be like, oh my gosh, they are not. So we need to be talking to them about stuff like that. Like, this is not okay. If you see this, let mommy know. Like, don't be afraid, because they'll even put in there, like in Elmo's voice, don't tell your mom and dad, this is our secret. They'll do stuff like
Mm,
that and make it play. Do you like secrets? Do you like playtime? They'll do different things like that, but watch that stuff with
Jesus.
them. YouTube is full of it where they
Yeah.
have taken something and it's something else. And I remember
Perverted it.
yeah, being at a friend's house, and her her friend's 5-year-old granddaughter and her 9-year-old granddaughter had a phone, and they, the parents just let them go. Them kids be all over that. And the little
Yes, ma'am.
girl was showing, they were laughing, and the other little girl was like, "That's scary." So I go and look, and it's this demonic thing that is embedded in the middle of this cartoon that is there, and it's like it's recruiting the kids. You know what I mean, to
Yes,
various things.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I
Yes,
just want to
ma'am.
make sure that you guys are aware of that. And but that's how they use different things to kind of bring their attention or to lure them in to those spaces and places.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marcelina, again, I thank you so much for the time that you've taken to provide this information. Of course, I'm going to ask you if there is a website or anything, a number, anything that people can utilize if there is some suspicious activity going on. But before I do that, is there anything else, anything additional that you would like to say to everybody?
I just wanted to say again, this is not an attempt to protect your this is not an attempt to get you to be fearful. I am trying to expose the tactics of the enemy that is trying to destroy our kids very much so, because because you're not exposed to it. A lot of people think this will never happen to me. And most of the people that it happened to didn't think it was going to happen to them. Like the young lady was saying, that Shasta, her family was having a barbecue, and this man walks in their house. Like their doors are open. Most people barbecue and they go back and forth, so they don't lock your
Right.
doors.
And
He
it's your
walks in,
home. You feel
it's your
safe at
home.
home.
In your home. Yeah, you're supposed to feel safe in your home. But just being able to um do those things, and you know um to be comfortable in your home is to bring awareness of different things, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think it's important to, let me see what numbers. um Let me see if I can look it up while you're doing it. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that you guys have it. But you can always report stuff to your local police department. It can be a
Mhm.
non-emergency. There is let me see if I can find it really quick, but there is a informant um that's suspicion, right? So
Mhm.
places you can look to see if you have sex offenders in your area is Texas Sex Offender Registry Program. There is a Texas Sex Offender Registry Program that you can go and see who's in your neighborhood. Just because, let me say this, because I have worked with individuals who have committed a offense doesn't mean that they offended children. So that's important to know. Just because they're sex offender doesn't mean that they're around children, but you still need to know.
Right.
Okay. Um, the other thing is the number for Crime Stoppers, which I think is important, which is 1-800-252 TIPS, TIPS, which is 8477.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the number to Crime Stoppers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mm, 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 mm.
Yeah.
All right. I did put those numbers or that information in the comments. Um, Again, I truly thank you. You guys, I see y'all in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions before we end, please put them in the box. We may be able, or put them in the comments. We may be able to answer them. But Marcelina, you have been ever so helpful. I do believe that this is a day and age. I don't know about y'all, but it grieves me. I know it grieves y'all. It grieves me to see the number of missing children's reports that we see on social media. It seems as though it's more and more every day. It used to not be as much. However, with social media, we see so much. We see so many reports on a day-to-day basis, and it can be disheartening. However, there are things that we can look for, and I thank God for people like Miss Marcelina, who has helped us, who has provided us a tremendous amount of beneficial information. Again, and I want to ask you this even before we leave: what are some things to look for in the event that we may be around somebody who's possibly being trafficked, and we're getting ready, and we may be around somebody who's possibly being trafficked? What are some tall tale signs that somebody is possibly being trafficked?
Um, be aware, like ask questions if you see somebody like a huge age difference. Be aware of because the person may be the child may be have been groomed enough to where they are feeling like this is their boyfriend, so they're reacting in a manner. But be aware, like you 70 something years old and this baby's like 12, like, or 14, whatever. Ask questions, be aware of what is going on. A person also, they will be not be in school and during time periods when they're supposed to be in school. Like, it's got to make sense. They
Mm-hmm.
may have on clothes that are not appropriate for the weather. That may be another thing. So they got a sweater on
Mm,
and it's 104 degrees out. What's going on there? They may have clothes that are too big for them or shoes that are too big for them. And it doesn't mean that everybody that has big shoes and big clothes, but just be mindful of stuff like that. Um, they look their body language, high up arms, meaning that they're trying to defend themselves. Kids can be pouting, but they usually keep it quite low,
right,
right? They keep it
right.
like around their chest areas. When they pout way up here, they're trying to defend themselves. That's how you defend yourself, right? So being
Mm,
aware of different things like that. Gosh, just things that just don't feel right. Like, trust your gut feeling. And I wanted to also give you guys another resource, if I may, Minister.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, this one is if you have in the state of Texas, you can report any suspicious activity, anything that you feel like, this ain't sitting right with my spirit. I'm gonna give you the website, and then I'm gonna give you the contact phone number for Texas SAR, and SAR stands for Suspicious Activities Report. Okay. So the website for them to report suspicious activity is www I watch the word watch, WATCH, Texas, TX.org. Again, that's www.iwatchtx.org. And the phone number for them for Texas SAR net is 1-844 643 2251. Again, that number is 1-844
Thank you so much.
And this is monitored. These organizations, what they do is they come together and they will provide the information to the law enforcement. And so not all law enforcement has this information. It's not just in the sheriff's department or city of Houston. The Texas troopers have it. The Texas Rangers, who are two groups I work with, phenomenal individuals, but they have that information. So I think it's important that um, that is done.
And this is particularly for Texas.
This is for Texas.
Okay.
SARS, a suspicious activity report is
Okay.
what it is, and there is a national one. So just look up suspicious activity report is what you're looking for to report any suspicious activity and anything that you feel is crime related or doesn't feel right. Like, I'm thinking to myself, in Shasta's case, how many neighbors? Because they didn't just live in a when they first started off, they were in a neighborhood,
Right.
right? How many neighbors saw stuff that just didn't feel right? Because it was a neighbor
Right.
that found the blood on the house in the on the door. How many people heard things, saw things that they were like, I'm gonna mind my business. What if you're the
Right.
family? that is somebody else's mind in their business. We don't think
Yeah.
about that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, again, thank you so much, guys. I know that you have been helped out. Those are, I did put the numbers and the information that Marcelina provided in the comments. So if you need to go back to that, if you are, if you are thinking that something is going on, if you have suspicions, please utilize those numbers and that information. Let us not sit back and do nothing. We have been equipped on tonight to do something. And that will conclude tonight's episode. I love each and every one of you guys, and see y'all next time. God bless and bye.
Right.